Hi everyone, we're here today at the Tech Museum of Innovation in San Jose, and we're talking to the talented Scott Budman, who is a former colleague of mine and one of the top tech reporters in Silicon Valley.
Why, thank you.
In my opinion, and many others too. So I want to talk to you just about covering tech overall. And first thing I wanted to ask you about, you've been in this market for 15 years. You see a lot of the companies that are tech giants now, you were covering back when they were just getting started. What are some of those companies and what was that experience like?
Well, it was neat. I mean, I've always liked covering startups because that's sort of the lifeblood of Silicon Valley. As long as there are startups that are making money and hiring, the Valley will continue to grow and the tech industry will continue to grow. So it's very much a sense of optimism to see these things. And I remember those feelings back when Yahoo was starting up. And it was a very small company, and they had this crazy idea of, bringing you to all this information on the web through search. And that was a lot of fun, and you could sense the excitement there. Certainly they've had amazing ups and downs since then, and have become a very mature company that's now struggling to find what's next because of another one-time upstart, Google. I remember when Google was very small, and their idea was kind of crazy because there was already a Yahoo, and they said, but we're going to do it better. And that was optimistic, and obviously, they did very well.
Right.
And so it's exciting to, even today, the reason I think the tech industry is as strong as it's ever been today is because this area is crazy with startups now, not just in internet, and social networking, but even in less sexy things like storage and back-end plumbing, all these things that are growing and will continue to grow the industry as a whole. These companies are doing very well and providing, a base for companies like Facebook and Zynga that are also really taking off and becoming the next, great companies.
So you mentioned Facebook. So when they first came to Palo Alto, the first story you did was basically to say, there's this newfangled Facebook thing that we all need to take a look at. And then where did it go from there?
Well, right, when they came to Palo Alto, it was sort of the beginning of when it got out of just being for college students. And obviously when we did our first story on Facebook, I was a college student, and it's like, hey, we can get onto this. And we've been hearing about it, and let's check it out as non-college students, as people that are out in the world. Is this for us, as sort of adults? And, it was, and the way they made their steps were very cautious and very careful, and perhaps you'd even say calculated. But the next thing you know, it's just snowballing to the point where, Susan, our parents are now on Facebook. And that was something that probably wasn't seen by, the guys early on. And they're another example of, setting up shop very small, growing very gradually, and then eventually very rapidly, and now so big that everyone's wondering, okay, what's next? Is it going to be a public stock offering? Is it going to be Facebook on, a Facebook phone? And you're always wondering what's next when a company proves itself that they're going to be around for a long time and they're established.
Well, speaking of social media, when you and I first got started in the news business, we didn't even have email.
Right.
So we're talking about traditional media and social media. How are you meshing the two with covering broadcast and then being active in social media as well?
Great question, because the broadcast area, when we think of old time stations like ours, like NBC, we still expect you to sit down at 6 o'clock and sit down at 11 o'clock and watch the news. And the news as we know it is completely changed. I mean, the Osama bin Laden news was coming out at around 7 p.m. Our traditional model is to say, hey, we'll bring you everything at 11. During those 4 hours, the rest of the world found out, thanks to social networking and the web, exactly what had happened. So by the time our 11 o'clock broadcast came on, I can't imagine there were very many people saying, oh, wow, who knew? And that's important to recognize that is how people are getting their news. And to be perfectly frank, our business is very slow, too slow to catch on to that. But as individuals, you see a lot of reporters who are grasping onto social media and saying, I'd like to get the news out this way, build the audience, not just to get news out, but to get news in, to learn. I find myself when I'm on a social networking site like Facebook or Twitter, sure, I'll send out information, but I'll get back 10 times that information, and still being a news hound, I want to know what's out there. So it's a fascinating two-way street.
And it certainly helps you to decide what stories people are really interested in. Because normally if you just put a story on TV, you might get a few calls from people saying, that story was awesome or that story was horrible. But when on social media, you hear from so many people, so you get a better gauge.
It's a perfect example. I mean, right, we put things out on TV and you really won't know until maybe the next couple of days at the grocery store, someone might say, hey, I remember that story, let's talk about it. Social media, the web is instant. And that is really actually kind of fun on our side to find out how many people are seeing this, what the response is, and we've never been able to get that quickly before. And so, yeah, there are other reasons to put stuff out there, because you'll see how people are liking or disliking your reporting.
So when you hear of young people who want to become journalists, what do you tell them that they need to do in this new world to be competitive?
I tell them to do what they're probably already doing now. And it's funny because it wasn't that long ago where, okay, you'd go speak at a college and say, get off the video games and stop screwing around on the web. I tell them exactly the opposite. Learn about video games, learn about the platforms, because, you look at something like Zynga, okay, they're sharing games now. They're going to share a lot more than games. Just yesterday, they announced they'd be sharing the very first songs off of Lady Gaga's new album. Believe me, that is the beginning of an avalanche of information to be shared by social networking sites like this. So you have to know about them. You may as well be on them. You're already on Facebook with your friends. Broaden it out to a professional level. Be careful about what you post there, because it can come back to haunt you. But if you're already online, stay there. That is the key to young people getting into the broadcast and news business, because what we're doing now is the old model, and it is rapidly changing, and it's going to be taken over by the web.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else you wanted to mention?
No, that's about it. And you're doing the right thing here. I mean, no matter what you're doing, absolutely, no matter what you're doing, you may not be on TV every night, which is a shame, frankly, but you're still getting out there and getting the word out. And let's be honest, you're probably reaching more people than you did on TV some nights. And what the heck, that's great.
I don't know about that. But anyway, thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
All right. See you guys.